Hello and welcome to Deep Dives with New Perspectives with Merrylin, LeBlanc and Michael Bartlett here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. If you like our station, please hit like, please subscribe, please share with your friends. Do all the good things that let us know that you're enjoying what we're talking about, and we'll keep talking. Merrylin, we just had like this interesting thing. We usually start like 16 minutes. We're running about 16 minutes behind schedule. It's a great example of what that goes on in life.
What goes on in life with Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde is in my second house of possessions, among other things. And what I have noticed in that area of my life is a couple times when it comes to Zoom, not just with you, but with some other people as well, I've had problems where I've had to go through extra steps or repeating steps 2 or 3 times to be able to get on. And knew immediately, oh, that Mercury, that's what's going on. I mean, just because we know about these little trickster energies that planet has doesn't mean that we're free of it.
Okay, interesting. It's not just Mercury that's in retrograde. Mars is retrograde in Aries, and Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, where Mercury is now residing. And so it's kind of this double whammy. I mean, the words that come to my mind is no va. You can't go, no going. It's like
Well, yeah. And that Mars is in my 7th house of relationships. And so when I'm trying to connect with people, with my friends, with Zoom, it's not working. And thank you for reminding me of that, because often Mercury retrograde doesn't have a really noticeable effect for me, mainly because I am a Mercury retrograde person. I have Mercury retrograde in my chart. I think I mentioned that when I compared our Mercuries. Not only are they in different signs, but mine is retrograde and yours is direct. And one of the noticeable aspects of that is the manner in which we speak. I'm more reflective in my speaking, whereas you're boom right out there, and blah, 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 blah. And sometimes I have to go, what did he just say?
Impact that. Well, I mean, it's like part of my kite. So it's hitting Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter. There's Venus there. So it's just like I don't know what's going to come out. But what I love about having friends, it's amazing. You're one of many friends who have Mercury retrograde natally. And what I love about it is it kind of forces me to, I mean, I can actually even feel it sometimes where I just like, I'll start to get a little bit agitated and I go like, no, wait, that pace is just as valid. That's one of the, I mean, these are all wonderful things that astrology teaches us, right? It's like, it's not that another way is bad, it's just a different way. And it's like, it gives me an opportunity, especially with it being, retrograde phase, I should be slowing things down a bit. But I want to push. And I mean, the other day I was like, I got so frustrated because every single thing I've done, I went back and helped a friend box up his partner's clothing of, they were together for 56 years. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like. It's perfect Scorpio, Mercury and Scorpio retrograde, go back and doing these things, going back through memories, putting things away, letting them go with the Mars and Aries. He was, old military clothes, from his 20s, which, 60 years ago. So we took it over to, I took it over to the shelter here in town, which will be great because, as you know, and not many people out there know, but we just got a landslide of snow last night and it's like 18 degrees outside.
It's pretty cold. Yeah, it has. I don't think it's hit 20 degrees out where I live over the last 24 hours plus. Yeah.
But it's
Well,
this, but it's
you're
just,
mentioning,
good.
You're mentioning the Mercury and your friend and whatnot, and I couldn't help but also think, of Mercury as the psychopomp. Mercury, as the companion into the underworld, or into the transition from this life on Earth to some other life beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, Mercury is the only god who has this ability to go hang out with his brother Pluto down in the underworld, hang out on Earth with the mortals, and be up in the heavens in Mount Olympus with the other gods. So it's this very amazing ability. And so especially when it's retrograde like this, it gives us the ability to kind of go back. So for me, it like was this perfect timing to go back, and ends up, it's really funny. It was also Gary's birthday yesterday, the 26th. He died on my birthday, January 26th. All these interesting, how synchronicities happen anyway, but just the way things play out. But the unfolding of life and understanding about these phases, so it allows us to be present with these cycles in a way that works. So what I was saying is, like, I'd start doing a project, and then I'd have to do something to redo it, every single thing. And I was like, damn it. And I got really angry and really frustrated. And I was like, gosh, can't something just work? And like, boom, it worked. and then the next thing started. I know. And then the next thing started, and I got upset again. I was like, now, wait a minute. The universe is trying to tell you to slow down, Michael. Slow down. It's going to take 2 or 3 times to do things. And that's okay. That's what, hopefully, being an astrologist, it's hard. As they always say, we teach what we need to learn. Well, I've been teaching patience my whole life. And if this isn't a patience, kind of archetype, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Well, another thing too about this Mercury retrograde, with that connection to Mars retrograde as well, is the uptick in COVID numbers and COVID cases. Speaking of the cycle pump and people transitioning, and I'm not sure if the death count has gone up, but certainly the case count has gone up. And both of these planets are related to health and viruses. So, yeah.
Well, in the sign, 0 Scorpio, when Pluto hit 0 Scorpio, was the beginning of the AIDS, crisis. So it's interesting, here we are with this. It's not, fortunately, it's Mercury who has a much quicker movement, but Mercury is that, as we're talking about, it's that ability to spread, and when it's in Scorpio, that's, it's like sexually transmitted diseases. It's those things that go on in ways that people aren't aware they're going on. You hang out with someone, you think it's safe, but it really isn't. I think that's kind of like, to me, that's kind of how I see that kind of placement, don't you?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, there's so many different manifestations, and it's funny because early this morning I was reminding myself that I need to resume morning pages, which I haven't been doing for a while, in terms of recording things, because part of this pandemic and seclusion is a loss of the sense of time. Things that happened last week, I think, might have happened a month ago. And I'm not quite sure what was I doing even that was different from what I'm doing now.
We're
So
really, in a sense, sorry.
No, it's just a very strange time.
Well, I just immediately think of like Neptune and Pisces. We're so, right now we're really just so adrift, and
right. And Saturn sextile Neptune. This is that connection where, and it's a waning sextile. So it's like something else is coming in, and we're in this kind of holding zone.
Well, when you say that, I immediately think of old world travelers on a boat, where there's fog all around, and they're just waiting for something to form out of the fog, to see land, basically, right? I mean, that's we're all kind of in this waiting, like, what in the hell is going to materialize out of this chaos that has been going on in the world? I mean, as much as we're all trying, especially those of us who are a little more control freaks than others, but, we're all sitting here trying to be calm and maintain. But the truth is, it's pea soup out there right now. I mean, fortunately we have astrology, kind of gives us an idea of what we're going through. I mean, what I like about that image is we are in a boat, it's safe. We just don't know what is going to materialize out of all these amazing threads of experience that is also along the continuum of where we're all supposed to be going collectively. I mean, this is like this
So I
amazing
could
nexus
scare
point.
you right now. I could
Sorry?
scare you right now. There's an iceberg that we're approaching, the Titanic. And that could be the case. That could be the case. I know
Yeah, but
people, I don't tend to look that far into the future. I know a lot of people think of us astrologers as fortune tellers, and that's not what I do. I know that's not what you do. And there are some astrologers who do that. But the more you get into the metaphors that are, reflective of the energies of the planets and the signs and the aspects they make, the more you realize that the possibilities are almost unlimited. And to pinpoint something so exact, either your intuitive psychic abilities are so refined that they're picking up on that,
yeah.
or that you just happen to be lucky, which can happen. But there are some things that we can say about the conditions. But, and that's another thing that I keep kind of reminding myself. When people are asking me those kinds of questions, I'm going, yeah, I should probably look at least at these larger cycles, like the Saturn Neptune one and some of the others that are definitely with us very strongly these days. Where are they heading? I mean, over the last few years, we've talked a lot about Uranus and Pluto and the changes that bring about, but we're only a quarter of the way into that cycle. So there's a lot more that can be happening related to that cycle. And it's, part of it's addressed and part of it isn't addressed because God knows. I mean, I've had to ask myself the major question of, will life, when you look at cycles that are as long as those, will life be, for humans, be habitable on this earth in 100 years? And that's a possibility that we determine now. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the question is are we aware that, that there's an iceberg out there and we've slowed our speed down enough so that if we hit it, we won't damage ourselves? Or are we going full bore ahead that's going to really increase the likelihood of doing it? And I think, that's where the retrograde cycles, I think, really come in handy. And it's going to be interesting to see, as this moves forward, once, Mercury goes direct, Mars goes direct, Uranus goes direct, Pluto goes direct. It's going to be a very different, actually Pluto's already gone direct. Neptune, I think, is the other one, the fourth. It's going to be a different thing. It's interesting, Mercury's in Scorpio, and, what we decided to talk about was Joe Biden, who also has Mercury in Scorpio. He has a stellium in Scorpio.
But I was just thinking, maybe since we were going to talk about the retrograde planets next week, maybe we should just keep on the retrograde.
Oh, okay, sure.
You.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's fine
Yeah.
because it's such an active thing.
We can talk about Joe next week.
We can. He'll still be around.
Yeah, let's hope.
And next week will be thank God election day, and well, then we're in for a whole other. I mean, I gave we had a group talk with OPA. It's available on my website if people are interested, coremichael.com, under recordings and classes. And we talked about these.
And what's OPA? Tell them what OPA is.
OPA is Organization for Professional Astrology. Astrology, yeah. And so it's all about looking at life, like kind of what we're doing, talking about these things. But with all these planets, Mars, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, there's this kind of powder keg effect that's going on. There's this building of this pressure. We're seeing it with the Supreme Court not only nomination, but now we have a new Supreme Court justice. Amy is now in there, which I think will be incumbent upon the Democrats to add to the court and create a balance, because these are examples of things like when things happen in retrograde cycles, you know that something's going to happen in the future to make a correction for it. That's kind of like what I'm projecting out there. We get all worked up about these things and make it seem like these are um, irreconcilable things that are happening, but there are options to be able to make changes, and one of them is going to be adding Supreme Court justices to balance it out, because the court doesn't reflect the desires and wishes of the majority of the people living in the United States.
Right. There are some other options too that Biden has brought up, and one is a panel of experts in the judicial world to suggest those changes. So they may not add members to the court, and then again they might. But it is a problem. I mean, I sort of feel, and I said this, and I'm not sure if I said it on this Zoom or on a Moonwise show on KSFR, that I thought we were just overdue for a constitutional convention in terms of changing some stuff. And then I heard that this is an agenda that some Republicans have had, and perhaps, for their ends. So, I mean, to have one would not be that everything would go in the way that, in the kind of liberal, progressive way that I personally see. But there certainly are issues because, to think about it, to have the president select and the Senate approve the justices is actually limiting the voice of people when it comes to this third branch of our government. And, during this heavy, like Uranus, especially, I would say Uranus in Taurus retrograde period, along with the Mercury and other planets, it's a time to reflect on that alone, even in terms of, does this really serve the kind of freedoms that this country espouses to protect for its inhabitants? I mean, there are things going on right now where they're not protecting, like the right to vote, and some of and that goes back to people being originalists who believe the Constitution as it was originally formed, which to me is absolute nonsense.
It's a regression, at least in that sense. But
you're right. Well, we wouldn't have people having their own guns. They wouldn't have the right to those because we have an established militia. I mean, we have, all these military forces, let alone the National Guards in each state. So, there's some kind of crazy thinking in there for me.
There's a lot of crazy thing. I mean, all this retrograde stuff is like, I always think of retrograde periods as this kind of a retreat period. It's like you've gone forward with some sort of an idea and you're going back and you're kind of mulling it over. This is not usually, especially Mercury and Mars together, these aren't usually the times when you go about choosing, like, how you're moving forward with things. But it is a good time to do your research. It's a good time to understand and see what it is that's building up to make this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of the things about Mercury retrograde is right now it's actually in the sign of Libra. It went back into the sign of Libra, which is, in my opinion, not everybody agrees, but I always think about the Libra and the glyph of the scales.
I still show it's in Scorpio. 0
well, this
degrees,
may be
25 minutes.
This may be the fact that, I'm in this kind of warp zone. On today is the 27th, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Well, tonight.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
At 7:33 p.m. it enters. See, I've already been working ahead. I have
ahead of me.
I have to write moon minutes ahead of time. I do shows ahead of time. And so my head is already with Mercury and Libra. But it's interesting because, the day after a justice is confirmed, we've had this Mercury at the very last degree of Scorpio. And that really Halloween gesture image where, there's this kind of like bringing out the psychological flaws that are in one's psyche. And right now, I feel like we're addressing the collective psyche, at least of the United States. And what what's wrong with this picture? Now, some people, I guess, feel like it's all right, but I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, this is not about the present president or the present Senate with its Republican agenda.
It's about our system.
It's about a system, and it's about how some groups, and I'm not necessarily political parties, actually.
Right, exactly.
You've read about them, they're not. It's about, yes, it's mostly people with money who want to maintain and
power.
So oligarchs who have taken control of this country. I mean, when just the way that the Senate is acting right now, and I don't think it's because of them, personally or individually. Matter of fact, there have been some who are pretty upset with the way they're being steered, but they wouldn't pass legislation a stimulus to continue to support people who've been out of work for months, some close to a year, and yet they would hurry through within a month or whatever exact time was, this selection of a Supreme Court justice. Unprecedented.
Well, we can only hope that results in individuals who are of certain parties seeing that. I mean, the truth is right now, both parties are being run. There's so much money being thrown at them. There's so much, the lobbyists have so much money. And all the laws have now been changed so that they can take as much money as they want. We have Citizens United. I mean, it's been
I don't know about you. I'm asked every day for money for the party I belong to.
I know, it's irritating. It's very I mean, even to be honest, even back when Obama was running for his second term, began these, every single time was an email like, oh, give us $1, give me $2. And I'm like, you know what? You're already damn well getting paid to do your job. Just do your damn job. Take care of our country. You guys aren't taking care of our country. You're not taking care of the people. And the bad part is we're electing individuals into these offices that are not interested in that. They're interested in actually buying other things. What I find incredibly amazing is how much money is being poured into the Democratic campaign so that Trump doesn't get elected. If he does get elected, it's just, I mean, it just will be such a crazy, representation. It's like, I guess we'll need to sit in a pressure cooker. I mean, it's not going to be easy. All of these energies are a building pressure. There are so many people who are so unhappy and yet don't really understand why they're unhappy. They're doing their jobs, they're doing the right thing, they're taking care of their families, and they're not getting the rewards that they need to be supported. They're getting kicked to the curb every single time.
Well, part of it, COVID has, exacerbated. However, there's somebody on some talk show that I was listening to, and I don't remember where exactly, but it had to do with a psychological syndrome that has been created by the types of messages, and we may be contributing to it with what we're even saying, that have been put out that the like, for example, take the healthcare scenario. If the Affordable Care Act is considered, as it's written, unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, people, will lose that right away. And that has set up a whole psychological state for many people who are dependent on that for their health. So
But I want to understand is if that will be the case, and how is the medical system justified the same for our elected officials? Why did they get lifetime health insurance for free? What is the difference? And also, so what if it's unconstitutional? So what? It's like, you know what? The country's grown since 1776, and we need to start taking care of our people in a different way. And this is what needs to be done. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, this is this interesting thing. I think it'll be interesting when Jupiter and Saturn move into Aquarius. It's like, do we really need to think about these things in this way? Or can we look at being, okay, that's the foundation and it provides the foundation. But the truth is from that foundation, when you put dirt in there, you don't necessarily, just because you plant seeds of one kind of crop doesn't mean there aren't going to be other seeds that are going to come up. Life doesn't give us pure anything. Just like you said earlier about the archetypes, the longer you're in astrology, you understand that the archetypal range of expression is huge. It's like, everyone gets, no one has a specialty of getting use of any kind of special color in the art world, but look at behind you, you've got artwork, behind me, I've got artwork, the amazing range of art that people create with the same products that everyone has available to them. It's like, we have this amazing capacity as human beings to do something that doesn't necessarily fit in the box. That'll be the interesting thing when Jupiter and Saturn get into Aquarius. But right now, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto are finishing up their round in Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of business, of industry, and those planets are like the kings of industry as well. Pluto's the ultimate king. Jupiter is the ruler. Saturn is the one who makes the rules. These are the ones like, what? We are the ones. How dare you peons question what we're doing? Right? It's noblesse oblige in a certain way. It's, not noblesse oblige, just noblesse is, it's just like, there's a nobility, and we don't really give a shit about what happens to anyone else. Because if those people really did, they'd be giving, on astronomical levels, they'd be giving the wealth. How many people need $10 billion? What can you possibly have? Do you need to buy a country? Do you need to buy a continent? I mean, what does a person need to do with that kind of money? Why aren't you reinvesting it, putting it back into school systems, supporting fire, the fire departments, nurses, doctors, education, health for people, roads, protecting our national parks?
well, the answer to that goes back to Neptune, which is one of those retrogrades right now, where the belief systems that some of the oligarchs have bought into is not grounded in the earth.
It's not sustainable.
Or it's almost a mental disease, some kind of psychological disorder, because there's no basic creed about who we are, what we are, and why we're here, and what is this place here. It's it's an ego that is. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have I'm sure that many of them have terms for this, but there's no grounding in any kind of value system beyond themselves.
Well, that's
it's sort of a Scorpio. It's sort of a Scorpio issue, because both Scorpio and Taurus, have to, and we have planets in both of those signs retrograde, Uranus and Mercury. Both of those signs have to do with value, but the Taurus is our personal values, our individual values, whereas the Scorpio is our group or universal values, if you want to put it in those terms. And for some reason, the truths and the beliefs and the perspectives that we hold universally are out of balance, out of whack. And this is, it's funny because, and this goes to the Neptune, religion comes to mind. And even though, and I don't know about you personally, I know we were both, and Catholics, I am no longer one. But when people ask me about religion, I'm going, I'm not a Marxist in the sense that I would say that religion is the opiate of the people. I think, and this comes through my teaching career of working with young children, I think that what religion offers is a sense of value, is a sense of belief and beliefs. Some of it is a little quirky, but
Hard to
you know,
reconcile.
huh?
Some of it's hard
Pardon?
to reconcile.
Right, exactly. But in terms of some solid universal values, they're there. And they offer a certain literacy about ideologies. I had an experience that when I was teaching in public schools, and this was a fourth grade class, where we would meet in the morning in these circles, a la Glasser's reality therapy, and anything could be shared about what the weekend was like, what the day before, the evening was like for them. And one kid was telling us about his church experience and what he learned about Jesus. And another kid said, "Who's Jesus?" And I sat there and I thought, this is illiteracy. And so I asked the kid who was talking about Jesus, could you tell him who Jesus was, but I guess so. It's sort of like I don't basically, coming back to what my point was more about how religion can be a vehicle for ethics on some level, for how to live one's life. Unfortunately, we don't teach a lot of that in schools these days. And there's things that have gone, civics has gone by the wayside too, as well. But, so there's a place that religion holds if parents aren't, I think it comes first from parents, but but one of the aids that helps parents in terms of bringing up a child in a world with a sense of right and wrong, and how to treat the earth, how to treat your fellow man. Religion can be, it's not always, but it can be that vehicle.
I mean, I think we've lost a lot of those sense. I mean, there's something that's happened between, since the 1960s, especially the 1970s. I think there used to be a real focus or respect or something given to that which came before, and doing those. And the process, this is a very Aquarian idea, actually, Saturn and Uranus, right? Saturn being the traditional ruler and Uranus being the modern ruler of Aquarius. It's going along and deciding what it is that continues to work, and then letting go of what isn't, and go outside the box. But the hard part is, in the process, there are many valuable things that are lost. I mean, we're not, people aren't able to do handwriting any longer. There's people who don't understand. We all grew up kind of like watching game shows, Jeopardy. So there was this way, you kind of like know current events and know things, so you do it, but now you watch these
I
current
still
events.
watch Jeopardy.
Yeah, but the thing is when they have younger people on there and they say, who was, basically Frank Sinatra or something, like, I don't know, who are you talking about? There's a serious disconnect from that which came before, and it's happening with our religion. It's happening with the educational system, because there's also some way in which our political parties have been able to lead individuals to believe that if you're intelligent, then somehow you are a snob, and therefore not a good person, and treat people poorly. I was just, like I said, back in Missouri, and here are these people with the political ads were one after another about, we can't let, these right-wing, these left-wing liberals come in, they're basically going to steal our children and, convert us all to socialism. And then, conservative Latinos who are voting, that are from Cuba, and they say, well, I'm voting for Trump because I don't want socialism in the United States. It's like, you do understand that wasn't socialism in Cuba, right? I mean, it's this very interesting thing where all this stuff gets twisted. It's that where you said, it's like in Neptune, it's like we're in this fog and everyone's being told disinformation, and like, people's opinions are like grander than the truth. All these things are, are Neptune. People are stuck in their own little tide pools where they can't really see what, sometimes that tide pool needs a good fresh flash of water to flush all that muck out so you can see what you're living with.
Right. Well, there isn't an encouragement to seek out the truth yourself. I mean, and I will say, and probably in closing, looking at the time, but you know, I lived the perfect communist life. I was a nun in a convent. Everything was in common, and we obeyed one person. That's communism, as distinct from some socialistic forms of governance. Perfect communism. And
being the key word.
and when I left the convent, I traveled throughout Europe and the Soviet Union, and one of the things I was most interested in was the forms of government. You know, going through the Scandinavian countries, going to the Soviet Union. I mean, and actually in the convent as a student, in an undergrad in college, I read the lives of Lenin and other communist leaders. Matter of fact, not anymore, but at one point I admired Lenin, you know, for the social justice. This is within the Catholic Church. And I wasn't alone in that, in that thing. It's not like, you know, what happens, unfortunately, is that people who have these religious, you know, affiliations are often lumped into one category based on what we see in the media. And, you know, so it's sort of like I pursued my own truth on this matter. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that, and I'm a product through undergrad school. It wasn't until I was a graduate student that I went to public universities. So it's like I'm a product of Catholic education. And, you know, that pursuit of knowledge was encouraged. It wasn't like, you know, believe this and only this.
Well, it depends on what sect. I mean, especially if you were Jesuit, that was really, you know, the intelligentsia of the Catholic Church. I mean, just
I was not Jesuit. I was not trained by Jesuits. I was a Dominican, which is even worse in some respects.
You have to have the little,
because they were the inquisitor. They were the inquisitor. They were the inquisitors.
A little more dogmatic.
Right. And actually, you know, I still to this day follow a lot of what Matthew Fox, who was a Dominican priest, had written. He was excommunicated because of his, well, he wrote about original sin as original blessing. That kind of did it. So, you know, there's I guess what it comes down to is a lot of Americans are not trained to think critically. That's probably the bottom line right there. Some are, some aren't.
It's an easy process when you're being spoon-fed by media, and it's like, you know, oh, good, I don't have to think about that. You know, the truth is, people are I know people are dealing with, a lot of people are dealing with survival right now. And so, you know, the idea of, you know, some lofty politician doing this or doing that is not necessarily something that they're worried about on an ideological basis. They're worried about how they're going to feed themselves, how they're going to get work, how they're going to take care of their families, you know, how to survive. And I don't know, I think it's such a complex mess that we're dealing with right now, and it's going to take some of our brightest and most synthesizing minds to come up with some solutions to how best to meet the needs of this growing nation and people and world in a way that works. And it's going to take some effort.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you for an interesting morning conversation. Once again, we do this usually on Tuesday mornings. I know that when we put it up on Zoom, people are, and not on Zoom, on YouTube, can be watched anytime. But thanks again for listening. You can, all of you that are listening out there, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. What do they call them on YouTube? Series, channels, whatever. We enjoy doing this, and we hope that you are appreciating the information that we're giving. And you can also listen to me on KSFR on Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. in the morning. KSFR.org plays Moonwise, and that's available as a podcast through KSFR's website under the programs under podcasts, or just moonwise.libsyn.com. And you can listen to those shows. And I'm also available by phones. It's area code 505-690-1878. And Merrylin LeBlanc at KSFR. Well, no, Merrylin LeBlanc at gmail.com. Moonwise at KSFR.org. Yes.
And please feel free to visit my website, Michael.com. I've got a lot of resources there and recent talks, like I talked about with Opa. This coming Saturday, I'm going to be starting an esoteric workshop for Kepler College. If you are interested in learning about esoteric astrology, it'll be a fun class, fun workshop. You can reach me at my cell phone, 505-690-3860, or my email address, michael@cornmichael.com. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
Bye.